Hi everyone, it's Margaret Manning here with Retire Different. This is the place for people who want to ask great questions in order to have a very profitable and happy retirement. And I've got two guests today that are going to help us unravel some of the questions around the transitioning into retirement. My first guest is Ellen Duffy. Ellen is a certified financial planner in Massachusetts. She's the owner of Parkway Wealth Management. And Parkway is an independent wealth management firm that offers unbiased financial planning services and investment advice. So welcome, Ellen.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm really happy to have you here because we love talking to real world people that are talking to human beings out there about money. And not that Pam isn't, but Pam Kruger is an investing financial expert. She's an author and a TV personality, co-host of PBS Money Track, and the founder of WealthRamp, which is a fascinating online tool that connects fiduciary advisors like Ellen to consumers like you. So welcome, Pam.
Hi, Margaret.
Another topic. We've got so many questions for you, and I'm really glad that you're here with us again. Thank you so much, Pam.
Always. I love being here. So we were talking about transitioning.
Yes, talk about transitioning. Because what is it? When do you do this? What is this transitioning thing? When does it happen?
Well, I think that some transitions can take years.
Right.
Some transitions can take 10 years because if you think about it money-wise, maybe thinking of it in terms of breaking it down to, maybe when you've reached your savings goal and you're not there yet and you're 60, so you're going to continue to work another 5 years. Does that mean that you're working full-time? It might mean you're working part-time. You're kind of defining it yourself.
Right.
So the transition doesn't have to be, we think of it in terms of like flipping a switch, like one day I'm working, one day I'm retired. And it's like, whoa, let's just, walk it back a little bit, slow down and look at what's happening during that transition time and all the different ways you can get there. So it's not like a hopeless situation where it's black and white. Oh, I don't have the money. I can't retire. No, you can transition.
So what do you so is transition in your definition, maybe Ellen, you can do, is it a process? I mean, do people come into your office and you say to them, oh, the questions that you're asking me show that you're in a transition now. Is it, what changes when you're in transition?
Well, I think it is a process, Margaret, and it's very fluid. I mean, financial planning is really about freedom and choices, and really the goal of retirement is something that's a process that begins years earlier when you begin saving. But as you get closer to your retirement goal, your retirement date, you're going to want to have an understanding of what your trajectory looks like. Are you adequately prepared? Are you on track to be able to fund a retirement? You're going to want to be thinking about your leverage, your debt. Many folks like to approach retirement without certainly any credit card debt. Some folks would like to enter retirement without mortgage debt. So it's really very fluid. It varies from person to person. Generally speaking, there's a financial component, obviously. And obviously there's also a kind of a personal component and just, separating from that identity of being someone in the workforce to someone who is now retired and someone who may have to adjust their spending and someone who is going to have to deal with maybe the identity of not being a working person anymore. And what does that mean for them? So it's kind of, obviously retirement is a very desirable goal for most people, but it does take some preparation, certainly financially, and obviously from a personal level to be able to make that transition. From an investment perspective, when you're no longer bringing in income from a paycheck, you basically, to use Pam's term, when you flip that switch from the day that you're working to you're not working, from a financial perspective, the assets that you've accumulated, if there's not going to be any more income, are going to want to be positioned in a way that you're comfortable with, that is diversified, that allows you to, retain your purchasing power, combat inflation, but also only takes on as much risk as you're comfortable with. So from an investment perspective, generally speaking, assets may need to be repositioned as you retire, and that varies from person to person.
Well, it sounds like in a way what you're saying is that transition is actually a mindset shift. It's when your mind starts thinking about these things in more than just a hypothetical way, but it starts impacting your behavior. Would you say that's true, Pam, and it's a mindset shift?
Absolutely. I think it's really scary
Yeah.
to consider retirement to be a cliff, if you will.
Yes.
And you're going to go over that cliff and, oh my God, when I turn 65, whether I like it or not, my car is going over that cliff. No, 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 no. Retirement doesn't even mean you stop working. Retirement does not equal not working, not bringing in income.
Right.
But when you do get to that point where you control it, whether it's over 5 years or whether it's over 10 years or whether it is a cliff and you do it in 1 year, you just want to make sure that you're really looking at all of what can support you going forward until you've got to count on living to 95. Even if you don't believe that you might live to 95, you probably stand a pretty good chance of living past 90. So retirement does not equal stop working.
So does transition, you think, can we kind of agree that it actually doesn't happen in retirement, that it's actually something that has to, well, maybe it does happen in retirement if it's that shock, you've been retired by redundancy or whatever, but would you say that it has to happen beforehand, and that maybe that's when people should go to people like Ellen to have a conversation, that you're a Sherpa to help people through this transition?
Yeah, because you want to co-create your roadmap going forward.
Right.
What the transition is describing is that you're going to shift a gear, hence the term transition. Mm-hmm. You're really shifting a gear. You might not go from 70 miles an hour to stepping on the brake and coming to a squealing stop. You might just slow down. Talking to an advisor who's like an Ellen, who focuses on holistic financial planning, looking at your real estate, looking at how much money you've been spending and how much money you have, on your like Ellen mentioned, debt, and being able to transition so that you're not going into this next phase with so much debt. All of that, co-creating a plan that's what Ellen does. Not only investing. Right. It's planning.
So what are some of the steps, Ellen? I mean, if you were actually thinking about a plan, like for managing the transition, managing meaning keeping it in control so that it doesn't emotionally overwhelm you and doesn't maybe financially overwhelm you, what would you say is how do you manage a calm transition? Or can you?
Yes, I understand, Margaret. I like to use the quote, preparation is the key to confidence. And generally speaking, when you're thinking about approaching retirement, I think ultimately you want to be really acquainted with your financial life. You want to know where you stand. You want to feel that you have a very clear understanding on what is coming in for income, what kind of income sources you have, what kind of assets you've accumulated, what kind of debt you have, and feel very clear on that cash flow. There's other things that will give you a sense of confidence or a sense of certainty around, do you have insurance? Do you have cash reserves? And a financial planner can help you kind of sort through all these things. And I feel to the extent that you feel informed on kind of your profile, that you feel informed on where your income will be coming from, that you feel informed that you have savings that will or will not, will provide for you for your lifetime, and you've implemented some strategies, that confidence will allow you to transition with a sense of calmness and certainty. I think self-care is part of the equation.
Yes.
And that, money is the number one source of stress for most people.
Yes, it is.
And we know stress contributes largely to disease.
Yeah.
And, being unhealthy is very expensive. Healthcare is likely to be one of your largest expenses in retirement. So let's eliminate money stress. And that's a very personal question. But I think for many people, a good way to eliminate that money stress is to understand and have a sense of knowledge. A lot of women have a confidence gap, yes. I find. Yes. They're afraid to ask questions, and find someone that you trust that listens to you, that can really simplify things in this area. Financial planning and investing can be simplified down to a few lines, and with the right partner, it can give you that confidence. But we want to practice self-care, practice gratitude. Remember, the best things in life are free. Yeah. Hit the ball from where you're at with your financial profile, and implement a plan that you can live with, in harmony, that helps you achieve your goals and have a prosperous and a joyful retirement transition.
Yeah, great words. Pam, we've talked about this before about the fear that a lot of women and well, men too feel in this transition. Like fear can overtake you and you can really be genuinely concerned that you're going to outlive your money, that you don't have an income. You don't know what kind of work you could do if you had to go back to work. Anyway, fear. Tell me in the Pam voice, some positive self-talk that people can do to themselves to sort of get confidence.
Well, first of all, understanding that you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not anywhere near alone. Everybody is dealing with this because we've all been brought up and we've all been told, we've been told scarcely anything about how to really prepare ourselves or having enough money to retire. Many of us, as far as, we go as women, we kind of assume that we would have a partner in life and that it would somehow work out happily ever after. And then you're here and maybe you're alone, maybe you've lost your spouse, one way or the other, divorce, stuff happens. And so it's coming together as a community, like the community that you've built, Margaret, so that we can talk like this. We can have these, very honest conversations, very open. And just understanding you're not bad, naughty. There's no shame. There's no regret. Look, you probably used a lot more money that you intended to put toward your own retirement, and you might have used it to help your kids. Yes. You've done things that are great things. Maybe you did travel. Maybe you had a medical situation that came up that was unexpected. You had to use your money for those things. So now it's about just taking a deep breath, breathe in, breathe out, and recognizing that, one of the biggest things that you can do that is in your control and to not do out of fear is don't turn to the wrong person for advice on your money and your finances out of fear. And we all know that the wrong person is the one who sits there and says, wait a second, did you do this? Did you do that? And, this is what the S&P 500 has done. And this is what and mind-boggling talk that doesn't mean anything to you. And all it does is scare you. Mm-hmm. And when you're scared, and when stuff happens in the stock market, and Donald Trump is saying that your 401k is going to go down, you start thinking, who am I going to talk to? And that fear can drive you to reach for the wrong person.
Yes, that's a good point.
Someone who can sit down calmly, who doesn't sell products, doesn't sell investments, who will sit down with you and co-create the plan to transition into a life where you're not working as much, or you're only working because you want to, or you're preparing yourself for when you can't work.
Yeah. So basically what we're saying is, in order to manage this transition, you've got to be prepared, as what Ellen is saying. You've got to be prepared. You've got to be honest with yourself. And what you're saying, Pam, is you've got to be loving to yourself, in the sense that you've got to put yourself in the context of you're in a world with other people who've all made similar mistakes. You're a beautiful human being that is flawed like everybody else, and that money is just one lens on a successful retirement. And the planning for the transition is going to, for decades ahead, prepare you. But I love that you two talk about self-care. I thought that was I've never really talked to people about financial planning and investment planning. You're thinking about self-care.
It's financial well-being.
Yes. It is. And it's related, as you said, Ellen, to your health as well. You really have got to manage this transition. Well, it doesn't have to be calmly, but it has to be in a positive way.
Ellen, one question that I think that a lot of people might have is, talking numbers just for a minute. You might have nothing saved. You might have, over $1 million saved. Mm-hmm. But what amount of money, if you were to say that when someone is going to stop working, that you see in the real world, I'm not talking ideally, I'm saying in the real world, that you feel is some sort of a baseline number that you feel women or people can sort of have a goal to have a baseline of X dollar amount, knowing everybody lives differently?
Right.
What would you say is kind of a good baseline?
Well, I would answer that question. Everybody's profile is different. And to your point, different geographical areas can warrant very different profiles of what you need to live for income. But a general rule of thumb, Pam, is a drawdown rate, maybe you've heard of this, of 4 to 5%. So what that generally tells us is that from what you have saved, pulling 4 to 5% annually is generally considered a sustainable withdrawal rate, meaning that if that nest egg is invested over time, you should be able to earn 4 to 5% on average over time to supplement that 4 to 5% drawdown, basically stating that that would hopefully provide you have income for the rest of your life without ever touching your nest egg.
Right. So this is that if you had $500,000 saved,
Yeah.
that means that you could probably feel comfortable pulling out of that. If your investments are earning 4%, the idea here, Margaret, is that you're spending only the money that you're not spending into the principal. So you're
Right.
really spending that interest income. So that's 20 grand a year. Now that's not a lot of money. So that's why I brought this up, because that's $500,000. But think about how easy it is to work part-time and earn $20,000 a year. So it's not like you have to say, you guys, that, oh, you have to have that $500,000. Oh my God, what am I going to do? No, think of it as, you know, if I want the equivalent of having $500,000, I need to pick up a part-time gig.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to give me 20 grand a year.
Well, and that's another conversation we're going to have about income. The focus has always been on savings for retirement. And, you know, you reach this magic number. Yes, I've saved X amount, X million, or X 100,000 or whatever. But like you're saying, Pam, income is just as important. And I think I read a statistic in one of the articles that we wrote. It was about if you have an extra income of $500 a month, that's the equivalent of $150,000 in savings. Something like that. Does that sound right? In other words, you'd have to have $150,000 in order to make an extra $500 a month.
Quick math, I'd say that you probably actually, it equates to more than that.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. But the point is that
I mean, it makes the point
doesn't sound like much when you're I work part-time, I'm making $500 a month, which is what, $6,000 a year. But it is huge if you don't have a big savings. It's the equivalent. So it's that focus on both, I think.
If you could just close your eyes and pretend that you do have the 200,000 in the bank, and say, I don't have the 200,000 in the bank, but just my little side job that I'm working at the flower shop part-time is giving me the equivalent of the peace of mind that, and you know what, frankly, I enjoy it.
Transitioning, actually, I think about it, transitioning could be simply that. It could be going from a full-time job to a part-time job, and then, you know, with an intention of stopping that after a certain number of years. Like transition could really take over a period of years. Don't you think, Ellen? Is that a fair comment?
Absolutely. And I'm reminded when we're having this conversation about income that to be thoughtful about Social Security claiming strategies, because Social Security is the cornerstone of many people's retirement income. And over 60% of people trigger their Social Security as soon as they're eligible. And we know from research this is very often not optimal, because to wait really increases your benefit, and it's really supportive if you have longevity. So to the extent you can kind of postpone triggering that Social Security through part-time work, that's almost always going to be a good strategy.
If there were like one message across every video interview we do, it would be, I'm beating this drum, boom, boom, boom. Think before you grab the Social Security, because trying to go back and redo it and undo it. And so many people go, oh, I wish I had known that. I didn't need to take it that early, and now I can't undo it.
Yeah. Right. And there's a big difference between taking home $1,500 a month and $2,300 a month. I mean, that's like the equivalent of having $200,000 in savings. So it's
right, when you really need it the most too, right?
Yeah. And it's guaranteed, well, for life, for now.
Exactly. Well, but we're living so long, what's going to happen? But we have to think realistically about where we are. But this has been a great conversation about transitions. And I think that this is, like you said, Pam and Ellen, of course, this is the time when you need someone by your side. You need someone by your side who is an equal, who is unbiased, who is trying to, understand your lifestyle and guide you. And what did you say? Co-create. I love that image. So, and I know your Wealthfront product is all about that. It's about connecting fiduciaries like Ellen to consumers.
Yeah, because most people don't know that Ellen exists. I mean, really, she has tons of clients. What I mean is that
type of person,
don't know that type of advice is available. They think it's all at the brokerage firm. It's not.
Well, look, Pam, and by the way, if you've got any questions, leave them in the section below this video, because Pam, and I know probably Ellen, will take a look when the videos are published. And if you've got questions, we want to answer them. And if we have to come back and do another series of videos to go deeper, we will do that, because we're here for you. And we're all trying to bring together the resources like Pam and Ellen to make your retirement wonderful. So thank you too for being here with me today. It's been a really educational conversation for me. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our Retire Different YouTube channel and check out our website at retiredifferent.com. We are a community of people who are asking questions and trying to make good financial decisions so that we can have an amazing retirement. We'll be looking at our relationship to money and also places that we can go for support, advice, and inspiration.